Welcome to The World Today. I'm Waqas Majeed Khan. Today we're talking about the Indian delegation that is visiting Pakistan. It has finally arrived for talks on water issues. That is going to be our first topic. Our second topic has to do with Russia postponing the peace talks that were scheduled for the 4th of September with the Afghan Taliban and 12 other countries. We'll be talking about that with some detail as well. Let me introduce my guests in the studio. Joining me for the conversation today, first of all, we have Dr. Hassan Abbas. He's a water expert. And joining him, we have Major S.M. Bashir, who's a defense analyst. And along with him, we have Kamar Chima Saab, who's an academic and a regular on our shows. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. Dr. Saab, I'll start with you. What are your expectations, really, sir, from these talks? Because we've been expecting these talks to take place for quite some time, and India has always been very reluctant in engaging with Pakistan on every single issue, but particularly these important issues, the core issues such as water and Kashmir are at the forefront. What are your expectations, sir?
Well, anything coming out of these talks, anything concrete, meaningful, rational, substantial, that's not an expectation at this point in time, at least. Because if we go back into the history, we are having these talks with them since 1948, and we are still having those talks, which means we haven't gone much in our talks because the issues are still there, the problems are still there. We being the lower riparian,
yes,
they being the upper riparian, they are always taking advantage of their position, and we are always at the back foot when they are doing it. Because now these particular talks are related to some of the structures they are building on Chenab River, which according to Indus Basin Treaty is Pakistan's river, and they are not supposed to divert any water from that river. And if they have to build any structure for some run-of-the-river projects, they have to follow certain specifications which are specified in the certain
Indus Water Treaty.
Yes, Indus Water Treaty.
So
what they have to do is they have to strictly follow those rules, but then they are finding gray areas within those rules, and they are trying to exploit those things. And Pakistan always have those kind of reservations that those rules are not violated, and they are always adhered to. That's what Pakistan wants them to do. But you know, every time, you know, whether whether they follow these rules or they don't follow these rules, whether they exploit them or overstep them, we can't do much, because if they are pouring concrete sitting in their own country, what you can do? I mean, that's the kind of position Pakistan has.
it's a very tragic situation, sir, because Pakistan has also tried to approach other fora, such as the World Bank, in trying to arbiter between Pakistan and India on this particular issue. But Pakistan seems to be on the losing side every single time. We don't seem to be able to make progress even when we bring these issues to international forums. So why do you think that is the case?
Because this is very interesting. Once you don't have a foreign minister and you don't have a very foreign active, proactive foreign policy, then a country definitely suffers on all such kind of issues, and which are absolutely very important to the country. And one out of that is this water crisis. Globally, this phenomena is taking very high importance because of the global warming. The water is becoming scarce, and obviously once it is said that the next wars will be on water, and especially it is referred to India and Pakistan, where because of the obvious reason, because of the land outlay and the geographical layout of India and Pakistan's location, it dictates very clearly that we are dependent on the water. However, that is one side of the thing, and they have since very active and professionally working on their with the international game players. They are on their side. So they always side with them, and they make a point out there, as Dr. Saab has also very rightly mentioned, that you can't really force them not to pour concrete in their own area. You had sufficient time to make sure that you have huge reservoirs of water, and this could have been tackled in one way. But that doesn't have a justification also with India to stop water which is naturally which has to be given to Pakistan. But that is now no more the case. And the international body funds also has stopped funding on that, and has stopped forcing India to really relieve that kind of water towards Pakistan. So that the situation will go more and more graver and graver. I think India and Pakistan needs to really address it. This is absolutely very, very important. Such forums on, talks this side or talks on that side. The talk earlier also in this year, in March, also happened in New Delhi, and the result was nothing. And the same thing is happening now, I think. Well, I'm very skeptical about any concrete thing coming out of it. It will have a status quo, and they will go back, and this will continue. But this doesn't resolve the problem between India and Pakistan. Other than so many contentious issues which are already existing, this is another addition, and this is going to be the gravest of all. Kashmir is one issue which is long-lasting since last 70 years. But I think water, you can't really live without water.
And there's an inextricable link between Kashmir and water as well, sir. They're both core issues that are fundamental to Pakistan's survival, and that is something which is a very serious issue.
Absolutely.
Shima Saab, we also heard comments coming from the Indian Prime Minister regarding making a water war against Pakistan. He categorically said that they will use water as a weapon against Pakistan, and it seems that they are continuing to do so. What steps can Pakistan take in order to highlight this particular move by the Indians, especially by the Modi government?
Well, Khan Sahab, technically I'm looking at this water crisis on two issues. Two areas. First of all, Pakistan must have a deft diplomacy on water issue, and that deft diplomacy can only come if Pakistan's authorities, and specifically while having the foreign minister, we need to actually talk on with international authorities, not just the World Bank. On that particular issue, all the World Bank, brokered that Indus Water Treaty with India. But I think that globally we have to talk, and how we can do that. For that, we will have to use the Sustainable Development Goal as an instrument to tell the United Nations and international authorities that if we actually want to implement the Sustainable Development Goals in Pakistan, for that we have a dispute with India. So that may be another angle to talk to international community, that they are unable to implement their goals regarding environment, regarding providing basic necessities to the people in Pakistan. So that is the one way to deal with that, raising international opinion and coming other than the World Bank, or going other avenues, using other avenues to talk on the water issue other than the World Bank. The second thing, Waqas, that is very important, and that is the Council of Common Interest just this year in April passed the first national water policy. And in that national water policy, there are so many things that we have to look at, and the most striking thing was that we do not have water infrastructure to actually store the water. And for that, the Pakistan's authorities have said that that the 10% of the federal public sector development funds will go to the infrastructure of for the water storage. And by 2030, that amount on the public sector development will raise by 20%. We also have a National Water Council headed by the Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister never headed that since we had this all the interim setup. And now I think we first of all know this water subject of water, environment, irrigation, agriculture, this subject has also been devolved to the provinces. Now, even to raise that particular momentum, that what is the assessment of the water in country, we don't have the sufficient data even. So at one point we want to talk to international authorities. On the second layer, we don't have that sufficient mechanism that to actually gauge that what are the water reservoirs we have, what are the position of our water infrastructure, what are the disputes between the provinces. So let's not just put things in India's court on everything, that India is doing unjustified things. Yes, they are trying to stop our water, but at the same time, we don't have the sufficient water infrastructure that can actually help us the water we already have in this country.
Shima Saab, that's a very important point that you have raised, a very interesting one too. Dr. Saab, I'd like you to respond to that, sir. According to Shima Saab, we don't have adequate data, and we are ill prepared when we are presenting our case in international fora. What are your comments on this observation, sir?
Okay, that's a good observation. And I have heard so many people say this, that we do not have data, we are not sufficiently prepared and all those things. Okay, As far as preparation is concerned, yes, we are not sufficiently prepared. That I agree to. But as far as data is concerned, I tend to have a different opinion on that. Indus Basin, as far as data is concerned, is the richest basin in the world. No basin in the entire world has as much data on it as much Indus Basin has. The problem is our scientists, our organizations, our policymakers, they don't even know that the data exists, let alone take that data, analyze that data, and produce something out of that data. I mean, data is like bricks. You build a house with the bricks, but a heap of bricks is not a house. Similarly, heaps of data is nothing. You have to build something out of that data. For that, you require the scientists, the visionaries, who should get something out of that data. Now, for example, I'm working something for the current water crisis. My work is related to that. We just took the data from the satellites. That data tells us for every square kilometer of your country. Now, that's a very fine scale when you're talking about a whole country. Every square kilometer of a country, that data tells me where is surplus water and which square is deficient. Now, if you have that kind of detailed data, why haven't you got anything out of it?
Now, that's a million-dollar question, sir.
No, you see, this campaign about water crisis, it has taken us by storm. I mean, it started somewhere in Ramadan, and it's not losing its momentum. And everybody today believes, almost religiously, that in 2025, Pakistan would be a desert. Now, how that can happen? I mean, it's just impossible. But this is kind of a popular belief now.
That's the kind of propaganda and perception that we've been
Now, you see, people
fed.
living in Karachi, we know they have problems, and they are asking me to build a dam in Gilgit. Now, even if I built that dam in Gilgit, what about that 20 million people who are living in Karachi, who are facing water shortages every day? How that dam in Gilgit going to help them? Would it? Nobody is telling you the mechanism. And then there are so many misperceptions which are going on. I mean, once they are talking about building large infrastructure, you know, there is always a story behind a large infrastructure. They tell you that this will bring so many benefits to you, it will stop floods, it will produce electricity, it will provide water for irrigation, and things will be hunky-dory after the structure is built. But you know, how much water the dam would store? Let's talk about one big proposed dam that will store at best 6 million acre feet. How much water you are running in your river? It's 145 million acre feet. Now, it's less than 10%. It's less than actually 5%.
Right.
So how somebody tells me that if I fix 5% water, all your problems will be solved? Now, we have to do smarter things, because we have to look at how the world is going today. Today's global mind is not what it was in the 30s when they built Hoover Dam.
Right.
Today we are in 21st century. Pick up any technological piece of 1930s and compare it with today's. You see it absolutely changed. Similarly, water management around the globe in the advanced world has changed so much that those people who have not seen cannot even imagine. I got a chance to go around the world for many years, work in many different countries on many different continents, and I have seen how water management is being done today. I mean, Israel is probably at the forefront of water management in the world. They are the best water managers. And they do not have a dam, they do not have a canal.
But they seem to be at the forefront of many other things as well, sir.
Yeah, I'm not questioning that, but I'm talking of science. I'm talking of science because science, the laws of physics are the same in Israel or in Australia or in California or in Pakistan or in India.
Absolutely.
Now, these two countries, Pakistan and India especially, I don't know. It's the way our policymakers who are now in that age bracket, who are sitting as policymakers, that was the age when schools educating people based on their mugging capabilities. They would just mug up the things and reproduce in the paper, and that's what they would call education. It is that generation which is now sitting at the top in both countries. They were taught a lesson, they had to memorize that lesson, and they will just reproduce that lesson. Back in the 1950s, they were taught a lesson by Americans. The guy was, I think, Lilienthal, who was very active member when the Indus Basin Treaty was being signed. He was the one who were making the proposals of cutting the rivers, diverting the rivers, making the dams, making interconnecting canals to connect the rivers, water transfers, water diversions, everything. Now, Lilienthal taught them that if the water is flowing in the river, it is useless, it is wastage, and it will make you poor. If you take the water out of the river or you dam it, you would become rich, you would become progressive. Now, that was the lesson he taught them. And they are still repeating the same lesson. The world doesn't believe in this lesson anymore. Now, in last 15 years alone, actually last 12 years alone, Americans have dismantled more than 15,000 dams larger than 30 feet in their own country. Because they learned that what they were doing was wrong. At that time, the global mind never thought about sustainability, as you brought out. The global mind never talked about ecology, ecological integrity, environment, all these things. They never talked about. You know, the love for animals and the species which cannot speak. Even our religion teaches us to actually take care of that. Now the global mind has realized what lesson we were taught 1400 years ago. We still don't believe in that.
We still haven't learned it.
And the world, through their scientific progress, have learned that you have to take care of those things as well. So today, I would have a suggestion for both India and Pakistan, that they should look beyond dams and diversions. They should look at ecological integrity. They should let their rivers flow. Go to Europe. Every river is now flowing, and they're better off. Who says that Indian and Pakistanis are better than Europeans? Our lifestyle is pathetic, and our rivers are dry.
Yes, sir. You've raised some really pertinent and important questions. But before we try to answer those, let's move on to Major Saab. Major Saab, the issue is very serious because it is an issue that also goes into the realm of security. It also goes into the realm of conflict. So in your opinion, sir, is there some way that the Indians and Pakistanis can actually sit on the table for once and do what's right, and which is right for the environment, for the planet, and for the people, sir? What are your expectations?
I think Dr. Saab has made very pertinent points, as you have also seconded him, and I definitely feel that way as well. But then our opponent here is India.
Right.
And since these two countries, Pakistan and India, are rivals in so many things, water is one thing on which they want to settle so many scores. Basically, the thing is that no doubt that if the rivers keep flowing, it brings better life to both the countries, and it is in the interest of both the countries. But Indians think the other way. Their thinking is that they have to stop this water flowing towards Pakistan. So they have to have a scarce water going towards them, or they have to be on the controller's side of the water, where the Pakistanis have to be brought on to their terms and conditions.
Exactly.
Because there are so many other things which are linked to it. It is not only one thing which we are fighting here. This is one thing. This is one front. Water is basically a new warfare. You know, there are certain, from the defense point of view, there are certain Indian rivers in which they are, they're keeping a lot of water to throw that water in the times of war, and they would like to inundate that particular area in Pakistan. And the same way, Pakistan would also have, certain places in that where the water will be totally flown out of that reservoirs, and it will be inundated, so that we can avoid each other's tanks to come into that and warfare. So there are, between India and Pakistan, once you talk, there are so many other complexities also which comes in. It does not only finishes off with just resolving an issue between the water flow and the control of water onto that. Maybe they are interested in flowing surplus water towards Pakistan from one particular area, and but that is not of no use to Pakistan maybe. And the same thing goes, the country which has got monsoon, the country which has got oceans, and the country which has got reservoirs to some extent, I think water scarcity can be tackled in this way in the modern world, which should be done, I think. But the India and Pakistan does not realize that this is in the larger interest of the humanity, that if we resolve these kind of small little issues. From Pakistan perspective, I would say that Pakistan would always like to get it resolved. And Pakistan wants that this treaty should go on, and Pakistan wants on the table talks, Pakistan is preferring table talks for not only for this thing but other issues as well.
But is there any other option besides sitting on the table and discussing these issues? That's the real question. Cheema Saab, Pakistan has had an existential threat from the Indians from day one. We are still fighting that existential threat. We became a nuclear power because of that existential threat. Now, when we talk about India-Pakistan relationship, the thought of going to war over water is none other than a nuclear war, and that is going to be complete devastation for more than just India and Pakistan. Probably more than half the world will be affected if that happens, God forbid. So why is it that we can't see beyond petty interests and actually sit down and talk about something which is for our future generations, something, a gift that we can give them?
Well, Khan Sahab, what I believe is that as far as India is concerned, we divide politics in as a high politics and low politics. India has brought everything in high politics, even culture, sports, people-to-people contact. Nothing is in low politics. So when we're dealing with India, we have to keep it in mind that the enemy has brought everything in high politics, so everything is serious, so nothing is normal with India. So if we have to deal in such a situation, so there cannot be normal ways to deal with an opponent. Either we have to have a sufficient political, diplomatic clout to deal with that, or we have to have sufficient domestic capability to implement that particular thing. And I think in all those things, in all of these two frameworks, our global isolation, where India is visioning our global isolation, and we're actually facing tough time, and we're actually having hard times with the global powers around the globe. Even the Europe and the Americans, everybody is looking not looking towards Pakistan very positively, because they believe that we have given them not a good time in Afghanistan because they couldn't win the war and all that. So in that situation, what we have to do is that we have to actually, as I talked about, that we have to build the water infrastructure, one, and secondly, we have to shift the debate. We have to shift the debate, and that debate can only move forward if we engage the entire society in Pakistan. And I think the Pakistan society, when we talk with India, we have to talk that how the people-to-people contact would be generated, and in that context we can bring all these things. Because other than that, we just cannot talk. If we go to the United Nations, they are not, the Indians have particular clout globally. The Americans don't want, they are not interested. The international institutions are not interested. So how we can talk with India? And the Indians, just remember that Navjot Singh Sidhu came here, and there was a huge uproar in India that he must not have gone there. So I believe that how can we talk on water on that? I was on an Indian channel, and they were saying that why this water commission people are in Pakistan, what they are doing, they must not do that. And the Pakistan need to do this on terror, they need to eliminate the terror infrastructure. So the particular narrative and particular mindset in India. So I think what matters at the moment is either we raise this public opinion at home to deal with that, and that public opinion just outbursts and that reaches everywhere. And second, we deal with the through that particular multilateral forums where India is, for example, if because of this SCO, Indian and Pakistan Army had to do the military exercises in Russia. So I think such kind of forums could be helpful for Pakistan if Pakistan's liabilities already get reduced, and we can communicate and we can talk on that, because no third party is ready to talk to India as far as this thing is concerned. Either the third party does not have the mandate, and at the same time, India does not accept the third party. And in a bilateral conversation, they don't come on table. So, you know, we have to raise all that public opinion at home. We have to raise that particular water infrastructure at home, so that if we actually need to deal this particular problem, we have the domestic or the local, solution for dealing with India as far as India is concerned, because nothing is normal. Everything is in high politics. Nothing is going on where we can even sit, even the people who are dealing with the cricket industry or the film industry or the people-to-people contacts, they are very much reduced. So all what we have to do is that we have to raise that public opinion at home, that how we have to deal with this particular issue with India.
All right. Dr. Saab, also tell us whether there is a possibility of reviewing and revisiting the Indus Water Treaty. That was signed in 1960. We are in 2018. Do you think that that Indus Water Treaty addresses the requirements of Pakistan in 2018 as it did in 1960? Do you think that we need to go back to it, revisit it, hash it out again?
I think that's a very good point that you have just highlighted for discussion. I mean, how I see Indus Basin Treaty. It is a manual written for a typewriter, and we don't use typewriters anymore. And if we want to use that treaty, we will have to build more typewriters, and we will never get compatible with the rest of the world. So today, what we need to do is, we have to think differently, and not just differently. Our thinking should now become radically different from what Lilienthal Saab taught us. Today, there are ways and means where lower riparians have the advantage over the upper riparians. We have not invoked any of those economic engines which give you more advantage being the lower riparian. Because so far, we have invoked everything which gives advantage to the upper riparian, and we are living with that since 1948. Now, what is it that gives you the advantage as a lower riparian? You have a connection to the sea. That makes your Indus River a highway corridor connected to the sea, a maritime highway corridor connected to the sea, and going all the way north into Jalalabad, Afghanistan. Now, guess what? If today you say that my economic engine of water would not be agriculture or hydropower, because I can get hydropower from solar much cheaper, and agriculture, I don't need to divert 90% of my water into agriculture, because now with the modern irrigation technologies, I can do the same amount of food production with 1/10 the water. So I can save 90% of my water, which is not running in the river right now. I can bring it back to the river. And when my river is running, I will start doing the inland navigation, and I would start serving all that landlocked, the world's largest landlocked region, the Central Asian states, Afghanistan and Western China, and parts of Russia. That is the key that you can serve. And if this is your economic model of running your river, then the whole world will be your clan. Then you will not have to go and lobby, because now you are giving advantage to the world. You know, this more than 500 million people live in this part of the world. Directly and indirectly, if China is with you, then that's 1/4 of the world's population. So you don't have to go around lobbying and, you know, those direct things. You should address the cause. Don't treat the symptoms. You change your design. You change your economic model. You put some investment in making your agriculture modernized, and that modernization is not just for the agriculture sector. It is strengthening your defense. It is strengthening your economy. It is strengthening your international relations. It will take you to the moon.
Absolutely, sir. Well, I hope that those who are in power and the ones who make the decisions are listening to you in our program today. And it's very important that we adopt modern scientific methods in order to address our issues, whether it is water or any other issue. I think modern science has the answers, and the solutions must be sought. Sir, let's move on to our second topic, because we don't really have a lot of time left, and that is equally important. So Russia had proposed a meeting with the Taliban to bring peace to Afghanistan finally. The Americans have decided to not be a part of that process. Now the Afghan government unfortunately objected, and that process has been postponed on the request of the Afghan government. What do you see happening, sir? Do you think that America feels left out in the cold when it comes to trying to find peace for Afghanistan. What's the reason why they have stayed away from these talks that have been initiated by Russia, sir?
I think America wants to be in the front line, and America wants to remain in the driving seat. And by having anyone else, coming into it and going for a straight talk with Taliban, for that matter, at least one thing is for sure, that they have realized that Taliban is a reality. And this is what the stance of Pakistan was, that yes, Taliban should be brought onto the table and talk for peace in Afghanistan. However, the basic responsibility of bringing peace back to Afghanistan remains to be with the Afghan government. And Afghan government should do it at its own. If Afghan government is looking towards Americans, and if America does anything and they try to do the same way, and they try to deny that effort which is being done by Russia and China and Iran and Pakistan and so many other countries in that wake of bringing peace in Afghanistan, I think that will be very, very disastrous for this entire region on one account. However, this peace process, or this particular talk which has been postponed, also seems to be coming at such a time once it is felt that the America is no more a popular state in this region, and their withdrawal is now is being seen, and it is imminent, that unless they go away from there, neither the Afghan government itself nor the the insurgents, which they call, like the powers like Taliban and others, also recognizes them to stay for a very long time now, because it has been 17 years that they have been here and they have done everything. However, they have also put a vanguard in Afghanistan as well. That experience has also not proved very good for them, where they wanted to give a better and a bigger role to India in Afghan peace. They have also realized that bringing in, for importing someone else from outside and bringing into Afghanistan just to do their work on rental basis, I think has also not worked. So there so many things have not worked out. So the thing is that it ultimately comes to the Afghan itself, that they have to recognize, which they have recognized, that yes, they need to understand the presence of Afghan Taliban out there. They need to go first. They have to sit with them, talk with them, make a consensus, and then only it should be. The other countries outside, like Russia, Pakistan and China, they are just trying to facilitate all this peace process out there. So I think...
not just them, sir. There are 12 countries that were going to be part of this process that was going to take place in Russia.
The greater regional powers also want to, every country in this region wants to, the Kyrgyzstan is also having, about 1,600 kilometers of border with Afghanistan. There are so many countries which has, it's not only Pakistan which has, there are other countries also having such a long borders with the countries like
absolutely,
that.
sir.
So that clearly shows that everyone is interested in seeing peace now in Afghanistan. So Americans should also understand that if the regional peace is, very much essential, and that too with giving a chance to Afghan Taliban and the government in Kabul to sit down together with the process, with the rest of the people, trying to support it. I think America should support it instead of staying away from there or abstaining this process whole to be jeopardized.
Any sane observer would agree with what you're saying, sir. But unfortunately, what we are seeing in terms of practicality is the Americans are not willing to engage in this peace process, although the stated goal is peace in Afghanistan, but their actions belie their words. Chima Sahab, how are we going to move past this dichotomy in their words and actions?
Well, I think the Americans have been talking since long that any solution that is coming from Russia is not acceptable. And I think they're stubborn on this, and I think there is no rationale for that. The solution could be from anywhere. If we're going to accept the logic that can come from anywhere, if they believe in science, as we are believing on American science, the rest of the world is believing in American science. So if this consensus and solution is coming from Russia or any other country, that must be appreciated and acceptable. If the Americans can go to Riyadh and ask the King Salman, Prince Salman, to help us having this Eid truce with the Taliban, then why can't we ask the Russians and Pakistan and China and others? But I think they're stubborn on that, and we can't just bring them on any logic.
Let's also talk about their stated goal now, because the last meeting that did take place between the Taliban and the Americans, the only thing that the Americans demanded from the Taliban was military bases. They wanted a military base in Afghanistan. That's the only thing that they seem to want. Why do you think that is the case?
Well, I think, you know, what I have looked forward is that the Americans have been using an informal diplomatic channels with the Taliban, and now they have reached to the formal diplomatic channels with the Taliban. Now, the point is, the Taliban have reached to this point that if there is an inclusive government in Afghanistan, inclusive government means that if they are the part of the process, they are part of the apparatus, then we can deal, then we can let the Americans to have the foreign forces be in Afghanistan, and they can help us in even training. No, the Taliban have reached to this maximum point, and even what they have written a letter to the American Congress, and despite that, things are not moving forward. And I think there are many ways Ashraf Ghani could be could write his name in history that he brokered this peace deal with the Taliban, and peace is there, and the Trump would like to do that. But I think we are unable to understand at this point that if Taliban have reached to this point, why the Afghan authorities can't accept that, why the Americans can't accept that. So on one hand, you want a negotiation, and on the other hand, you are fighting with them. And above all, what matters is that I think you are not acceptable any solution from the regional partners. So I think Americans are just in Afghanistan for nothing. They have, I think, I believe, personally believe, they can get many avenues to get out of this situation. Only what matters is, and then we raise the conspiracy theories that Americans are here to look at Russia, to look at Pakistan, to look at China, and all this, you know, what we have been hearing. But at the moment, the Taliban want an inclusive government, and that inclusive government is to share the power in Kabul. If other stakeholders can come, why can't the Taliban come? And they come from the very social fabric of the society. So here, what matters is that what are the new challenges? The Trump administration is that we are raising the number of soldiers in Afghanistan. The more the number of the soldiers they're raising, trillions of dollars, 3 presidents, about 2 decades of war, and yet no solution. So, so the solution they can find is if they include everyone in a dialogue, be it India, be it Pakistan, although Pakistan does not accept Indian involvement there. But I think for a broader solution of Afghanistan and for peace in Afghanistan, I think everybody need to sit and let the proposal come from Russia, and let's even let it come from Iran, even if they can better deal with it.
Majid Saab, do you think that this particular meeting that has now been postponed has a chance of taking place? Because there are many who are now also commenting that this probably process is going to be dead in the water. As we've seen previously, many such initiatives that were, which were started, they're basically nowhere to be seen anymore. For example, the trilateral summit that was made, the quadrilateral summit that was made. So there's nothing happening on any of those fronts. So do you think that this particular postponement will actually be a postponement and not really a cancellation at all?
I think it will be just a postponement and no cancellation for that matter, because 17 years of war has dictated that there is no solution other than coming onto the table and having a talk. And may it be your interest, like the Americans are only feared of, that if they stay or abstain away from all this, then they lose that larger role for which they want to have their presence is in this region. And definitely they are fearful of the economic booster which is coming into this region, and this is the only place from where they can operate on that and have a straight check on the economic gains of China, which is threatening its economy now. So they can't afford to have another war kind of a thing, or they can't really cancel this. However, they want to have a peace in Afghanistan also. The Americans' desire is to have peace in Afghanistan, but with their, on their terms and conditions. That is what they want. They don't want anyone else, because they feel that they have taken this on. They have fought this war for 17 years in this area, and now suddenly if they just leave it and they go away and the role is given to someone else and the others reap the fortune for which they had probably come in, that is one thing which is not basically is being digested by them. But sooner or later they have to digest this pill, because in the larger interest of the global peace, I think they have to understand that they their role is finished here in Southeast Asia, especially in Afghanistan. And in case they want to stay in some way or the other, their presence has to be there. Then that is only solution is that they have to monetarily and otherwise morally they can always support the peace process in this way as well. So I think basing on this analogy, I say that this is a temporarily suspended thing, because China and Russia and Pakistan and Iran and other countries in this region are actively pursuing peace in Afghanistan. So it's only being delayed by Kabul regime, and that too also sponsored by the American presence and the NATO out there is just delaying it. So it's a temporarily delayed for that matter, but ultimately I think this is going to happen, and the sooner it happens, I think it is in the interest of everyone around there.
All right, so thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking out the time and sharing your views with PTV World. Well, you heard the conversation, and as always, we like to say that please draw your own conclusions from what you've heard. And on that note, it's goodbye.
Sayings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. He who does not respect elders, does not have mercy on children, does not commend what is good, and does not forbid what is evil, is not one of us.
And Mr. Pompeo is a success, and we can remove all the problems that the bilateral relationship is having right now. With that hope and on that note, it's goodbye.